everyone. Welcome back to Goodnight Stories. My name is Lyra, and I will be your guide into whatever book we decide to read tonight. From young readers to young adult novels, my hope is to give you a comfortable space to listen to a story while you work or doze. So, sit back, relax, grab a cup of tea. Tonight we jump back into Erin Hunter's A Dangerous Path, the 5th book in the original Warriors series. Alright. Chapter 4. Fireheart's flanks heaved as he fought for breath, and his cheeks stung where claws had raked across it. As he staggered to his feet, Brightpaw took a couple of steps back. "I haven't hurt you, have I?" the ginger and white apprentice asked anxiously. "No, I'm fine," Fireheart gasped. "Did Whitestorm show you that move? I never saw it comin'. Well done." Trying not to limp, he padded across the training hollow to where Swiftpaw, Thornpaw, and Cloudpaw were watching. He had been assessing the apprentices' fighting skills, and they had all held their own against him. They had the makings of formidable warriors. "I'm glad you're all on my side. I wouldn't want to meet you in battle," Fireheart meowed. "I've had a word with your mentors, and they think you're ready, so I'm going to ask Bluestar if you can be made warriors." Brightpaw, Thornpaw, and Swiftpaw exchanged excited glances. Cloudpaw tried to look nonchalant, but there was a gleam of anticipation in his eyes too. "Okay," Fireheart went on. "Hunt on your way back to the camp, and see that the elders and queens are fed. Then you can eat." "If there's anything left," mewed Swiftpaw. Fireheart flicked a glance at him. Swiftpaw sometimes picked up discontented rumblings from his mentor, Longtail, who had once been a close ally of Tigerclaw, but on this occasion he seemed to be trying to make a joke. All 4 young cats sprang up and dashed out of the training hollow. Fireheart heard Brightpaw yelling to Cloudpaw, "Bet I can catch more prey than you." It seemed a long time since he had been that carefree. Fireheart reflected as he followed more slowly. Under the weight of his responsibilities as deputy, he sometimes felt older than the elders. The clan was surviving, managing to find food and to rebuild the devastated camp, but all the warriors were overstretched. Fireheart was on his paws from dawn to sunset, and every night he went to his den with tasks still undone. "How long can we go on?" he asked himself. "It'll get harder, not easier, when Leaf Bear comes." Already the few leaves that the fire had left on the trees were turning red and gold. As Fireheart paused at the top of the hollow, he felt a chill breeze ruffle his fur, though the sun shone brightly. He slipped quietly back into camp and stood for a moment near the entrance, looking around. Darkstripe, who was in charge of the rebuilding, had started to patch the remaining gaps in the branches of the warrior's den. Dustpelt was working with him and the 2 younger apprentices, Fernpaw and Ashpaw. On the other side of the camp, Fireheart saw Cinderpelt making her way to the elder's den, carrying some herbs in her jaws. In the center of the clearing, Goldenflower's 2 kits were playing with Speckletail's kit, while the queen sat watching them near the entrance to the nursery. Willowpelt was there too, carefully guarding her litter, who were much younger from the rough play of the older kits. Fireheart's gaze rested on Bramblekit, the bigger of Goldenflower's kits. That strong, muscular body and dark brown pelt were disturbingly familiar. No cat who looked at the kit could doubt that Tigerstar was his father. The thought always made Fireheart uneasy, and he struggled to push it aside. Logically, he knew that he should feel just as suspicious of the kit's sister, Tawny-Kit, but though she shared the same father, she didn't share the misfortune of looking exactly like him. Fireheart knew it was unfair to blame Bramblekit for his father's crimes. Yet Fireheart could not banish the memory of the young kit clinging to a branch of a blazing tree, wailing in terror as Fireheart tried to reach him, and he could not forget that while he was rescuing Bramblekit, the fire had trapped Yellowfang in her den. Had he sacrificed Yellowfang to save Tigerstar's son? Suddenly a shrill squeal came from the group of kits. Bramblekit had bowled over Snowkit and was holding him down on the ground with his claws. The squealing came from the sturdy white kit, who didn't seem to be trying to defend himself. Fireheart shot forward, barreling into Bramblekit and knocking him away from his victim. "Enough," he snarled. "What do you think you're doing?" The dark tabby kit picked himself up, amber eyes glaring with shock and indignation. "Well?" Fireheart demanded. Bramblekit shook dust off his fur. "It's nothing, Fireheart. We're only playing." "Only playing? Then why was Speckletail's kit crying out like that?" The glow died from Bramblekit's amber eyes, and he shrugged. "How should I know? I can't play properly. He can't play properly anyway." "Bramblekit!" It was Goldenflower who spoke, coming to stand beside her kit. "How many times do I have to tell you? If somebody squeals, you let go. And don't be so rude to Fireheart. Remember, he's the deputy." Bramblekit's eyes flicked to Fireheart and away again. "I'm sorry," he mumbled. "Yes, we'll make sure it doesn't happen again," Fireheart snapped. Bramblekit padded past him to where Snowkit still crouched on the ground. Speckletail was giving his white fur a brisk lick. "Come on, get up," she meowed. "You're not hurt." "Yeah, come on, Snowkit," Bramblekit meowed, swiping his tongue over the kit's ear. "I didn't mean it. Come and play, and you can be clan leader this time." Bramblekit's sister, Tawnykit, was sitting a couple of tail lengths away, her tail curled around her paws. "He's no fun," she mewed. "He never has any good games." "Tawnykit," Goldenflower cuffed her lightly across one ear. "Don't be so nasty. I don't know what's gotten into the pair of you today." Snowkit was still crouched on the ground and got up only when his mother nudged him to his feet. "Maybe you should let Cinderpelt check him," Fireheart advised the pale tabby queen. "Make sure he's not hurt?" Speckletail swung her head around and glared at her clan deputy. "There's nothing wrong with my kit," she growled. "Are you saying that I can't look after him properly?" Turning her back on Fireheart, she herded Snowkit back into the nursery. "She's very protective of her kit," Goldenflower explained. "I think it comes of having only the one." She blinked fondly at her two kits, now scuffling together on the ground. Fireheart went to sit beside her, feeling uncomfortable about the harsh way he had spoken to Bramblekit. "Have you told them that their father is leader of ShadowClan now?" he asked quietly. Goldenflower gave him a quick glance. "No, not yet," she admitted. "They would only boast about it, and then some cat would tell them the rest of the story." "Sooner or later they'll find out," meowed Fireheart. The Ginger Queen vigorously washed her chest fur for a few moments. "I've seen the way you look at them," she meowed at last. "Especially Bramblekit. It's not his fault that he looks exactly like Tigerstar, but other cats look at him like that too." Thoughtfully, she licked her paw and drew it over her ear. "I want my kits to grow up happy, not feeling guilty because of something that happened before they were born. Maybe there's more hope of that now if Tigerstar becomes a great leader. Maybe they'll even be proud of him in the end." Fireheart twitched his ears uncomfortably, unable to share her optimism. "They both respect you, you know," Goldenflower went on. "Especially since you saved Bramblekit from the fire." For a moment, Fireheart didn't know what to say. He felt guiltier than ever about his hostile feelings towards Bramblekit. Yet however hard he tried, he could not help seeing the murderous father in the young kit. "I think you should tell them about Tigerstar," Goldenflower meowed, turning an intense gaze on him. "You're the deputy, after all. They would take it well from you, and I know you would tell them the truth." "You think I should tell them now?" Fireheart stammered. The way Goldenflower spoke made it sound like a challenge. "No, not now," replied Goldenflower calmly. "Not until you're ready, and when you think they're ready," she added. "But don't leave it for too long." Fireheart dipped his head. "I will, Goldenflower," he promised, "and I'll make it as easy for them as I can." Before Goldenflower could reply, Bramblekit came skidding up to his mother with Tawnykit just behind him. "Can we go and see the elders?" he asked, eyes shining. "One-Eye promised to tell us some great stories." Goldenflower let out an indulgent purr. "Yes, of course," she meowed. "Take her something from the pile of fresh kill, that's good manners. And mind that you're back here by sunset." "We will," meowed Tawnykit. She dashed off across the camp, calling over her shoulder, "I'm going to fetch a mouse for One-Eye." "No, you're not. I am," Bramblekit yowled, scampering after her. "Well," Goldenflower meowed, turning back to Fireheart. "If you can see anything wrong with those kits, tell me what it is, because I can't." She got up, obviously not needing an answer, and shook each paw in turn before retreating into the nursery. Fireheart watched her go, Somehow he had managed to make himself unpopular with both Speckletail and Goldenflower. Even though Goldenflower trusted him, she clearly found it hard to forgive him for his conflicting feelings about Bramblekit, and he was no nearer to sorting them out. Sighing, he got to his paws, realizing it was time he sent out the evening patrol. As he turned away from the nursery, he caught sight of Brackenfur, who was hovering nearby as if he wanted to speak to him. "Is there a problem?" he asked the young warrior. "I don't know," Brackenfur replied. "It's just that I saw what happened there with Speckletail's kit, and you're not going to tell me I was too hard on Bramblekit, are you?" "No, Fireheart, of course not, but, well, I think there might be something wrong with Snowkit." Fireheart knew that the golden brown Tom wouldn't make a fuss about nothing. "Go on," he urged. "I've been keeping an eye on him," Brackenfur explained. He scuffed the ground with his forepaws, an embarrassed look on his face. I sort of hoped Bluestar might choose me to mentor him, and I wanted to get to know him, and I think there's something the matter with him. He doesn't play like the others. He doesn't seem to respond when any cat talks to him. You know kits, Fireheart, noses into everything. But Snowkit's not like that. I think Cinderpelt ought to have a look at him." I suggested that to Speckletail and practically got my ears clawed. Brackenfur shrugged. "Maybe Speckletail won't admit there could be anything wrong with her kit." Fireheart thought for a moment. Snowkit did seem slow and unresponsive compared to the other kits. He was much older than Goldenflower's litter, but nothing like as well developed. "Leave it with me," he meowed. "I'll have a word with Cinderpelt. She'll find a way of taking a look at the kit without upsetting Speckletail." "Thanks, Fireheart." Brackenfur sounded relieved. Meanwhile, Fireheart mewed. "Can you lead the evening patrol? Ask Mousefur and Brindleface to go with you." Brackenfur straightened up. "Sure, Fireheart," he replied. "I'll go and look for them now." He set off across the camp with his tail held high. When he had gone a few fox lengths, Fireheart called him back. "Oh, and Brackenfur?" He mewed, pleased for once to impart good news. "When Snowkit is ready, I'll speak to Bluestar about letting you mentor him." Before Fireheart went to find Cinderpelt, he visited Bluestar to tell her about the apprentice's assessment. The clan leader was seated outside her den in a patch of sunshine, and Fireheart thought hopefully that she might be feeling more like her old self, but her blue eyes looked tired as she blinked at him, and a piece of fresh kill lay beside her, only half eaten. "Well, Fireheart," she asked as he approached, "what can I do for you?" "I've got good news, Bluestar." Fireheart tried to sound cheerful. "I assessed all 4 of the older apprentices today. They did well. I think it's time they were made into warriors." "The older apprentices?" Bluestar's eyes clouded with confusion. "That would be Brackenpaw and Cinderpaw?" Fireheart's heart sank. Bluestar couldn't even remember which cats were apprentices. "No, Bluestar," he mewed patiently. "Cloudpaw, Brightpaw, Swiftpaw, and Thornpaw." Bluestar shifted a little. "That's who I meant," she snapped. "And you want them to be warriors? Just remind me who their mentors are, will you?" "I'm Cloudpaw's mentor," Fireheart began, trying to keep his increasing dismay out of his voice. "The others are Longtail." "Longtail," Bluestar interrupted. "Ah, yes, one of Tigerclaw's friends. Why did we give him an apprentice when we can't trust him?" "Longtail chose to stay in ThunderClan when Tigerclaw left," Fireheart reminded her. Bluestar snorted. "That doesn't mean we can trust him," she repeated. "We can't trust any of them. They're traitors, and they'll train more traitors. I won't make warriors of any of their apprentices." She paused as Fireheart stared at her, appalled, then added, "Only yours, Fireheart. You alone are faithful to me. Cloudpaw can be a warrior, but not those others." Fireheart didn't know what to say. Even though the clan seemed happy to have Cloudpaw back after his escapade with the 2 legs, Fireheart could foresee trouble if his apprentice was made a warrior and the other apprentices were not. Besides, it wouldn't do Cloudpaw any good to be singled out for an honor that the others deserved just as much as he did. Fireheart fought with rising panic as he realized that meant none of the apprentices could be made into warriors yet, even though the clan needed them so desperately. He knew there was no reasoning with Bluestar in this mood. "Thanks, Bluestar," he meowed at last, starting to back away. "But maybe we'll wait a while longer. A bit more training won't hurt." He made his escape, leaving Bluestar looking after him with the same vague expression in her eyes. Chapter 5. The sun was going down, casting long shadows across the clearing, by the time Fireheart went to look for Cinderpelt. He found the medicine cat in her den, checking her supplies of healing herbs, and sat just outside the entrance to talk to her. "Speckletail's kits," she meowed, when Fireheart had told her about Brackenfur's suspicions. She narrowed her eyes thoughtfully. Yes, I can see what he means. I'll take a look." "You'll have to be careful of Speckletail," Fireheart warned her. "When I suggested she might let you check Snowkit, she practically bit my nose off." "I am not surprised," remarked Cinderpelt. "No queen wants to believe her kits aren't perfect. I'll deal with it, Fireheart, don't worry. But not right away," she added, patting her store of juniper berries into a neater pile. "It's too late to disturb them tonight, and tomorrow I have to go to Highstones." "So soon?" Fireheart was surprised. He hadn't realized how quickly the days were slipping by. "Tomorrow night is the new moon. All the other medicine cats will be there too. StarClan will give me my full powers." Cinderpelt hesitated and then added, "Yellowfang should have come with me to present me to StarClan as a fully trained medicine cat. Now I'll have to go through the ceremony without her." Her eyes grew wide and remote as she spoke. Fireheart felt that she was moving far away from him, into a land of shadows and dreams where he could not follow her. "You'll need to take a warrior with you," he meowed. "Last time Bluestar tried to go to Highstones, WindClan wouldn't let her pass through their territory." Cinderpelt looked at her calmly. "I'd like to see the patrol that would dare to stop a medicine cat. StarClan would never forgive that." Her expression changed and her eyes glinted mischievously. "You can come as far as Four Trees if you like, assuming you can spare the time from Sandstorm." Fireheart felt uncomfortable. "I don't know what you mean," he muttered. But he remembered leaving to go and eat with the Sandstorm while Cinderpelt was telling him about her dream, and he guessed that the medicine cat had felt unfairly dismissed. "Sandstorm can lead the dawn patrol without me," he mewed out loud. "I'll come with you to Forest Trees." The next day dawned damp and misty. Trundles of fog curled between the trees as Fireheart and Cinderpelt made their way to Four Trees. The clinging white clouds dampened the sound of their paw steps and beaded their fur with tiny droplets. In the silence, Fireheart jumped at the sudden alarm call of a bird above his head. He felt half afraid that they might lose their way in this eerily unfamiliar-looking forest. But by the time they crossed the stream and began to climb the slope to Four Trees, the mist had begun to clear, and at the top of the hollow they emerged into bright sunlight. The four massive oaks stood straight ahead of them, their leaves turning red gold with the approach of leaf-fall. Cinderpelt let out a noisy breath and shook the moisture from her fur. "That feels good. I was starting to think I'd have to scent my way to Highstones, and I've only been there once before with Yellowfang." Fireheart, too, enjoyed the feeling of warm sun on his fur. He stretched luxuriously and opened his jaws to taste the air, hoping to pick up the scent of prey. Instead, the scent of other cats flooded over him. ShadowClan, he thought, his muscles tensing as his gaze flicked from side to side. A moment later, he relaxed as he spotted Running Nose, the ShadowClan medicine cat, padding up the hollow from ShadowClan territory with another cat beside him. This was no hostile warrior. StarClan raised medicine cats above the level of clan rivalry. "It looks as if you won't have to travel alone after all," he meowed to Cinderpelt. They waited until the ShadowClan cats came up to them. As they drew nearer, Fireheart recognized the other cat. It was Little Cloud, a small tabby tom who had almost died in his clan's recent sickness. He and another warrior, Whitethroat, had tried to seek refuge with ThunderClan. Bluestar had refused to take them in, but Cinderpelt had secretly sheltered them and cared for them until they were fit enough to travel back to their own territory. Whitethroat had died soon after, when Tigerstar and his rogues had attacked a ThunderClan patrol. A monster had cut the young cat down on the Thunder Path as he was fleeing from the fight. Reliving the shock of that moment, Fireheart was glad to see that Little Cloud at least looked strong and healthy again. "Hello there," Running Nose greeted the ThunderClan cats cheerfully. "Well met, Cinderpelt. It's a good day to travel." Little Cloud nodded respectfully to Fireheart and went to touch noses with Cinderpelt. "It's good to see you on your paws again," she meowed. "It's good to see you on your paws again," she meowed. "All thanks to you," Little Cloud replied. With a touch of pride, he added, "I'm Running Nose's apprentice now." "Congratulations!" Cinderpelt purred. "And that's because of you too," Little Cloud went on enthusiastically. When we were ill, you knew just what to do, and then you gave us healing herbs to take back to the clan. And they worked. I want to do more stuff like that." "He has a real talent," Running Nose meowed. "And it took courage to come back to us with the herbs. I'm only sorry Whitethroat didn't come back with him." "He didn't?" Fireheart asked, seizing the chance to find out how much the Shadow Clan cats knew about the young warrior's fate. Sadly, Little Cloud shook his head. "He wouldn't come back with me to camp. He was scared of catching the sickness again, even though we had the healing herbs with us." He blinked as if the memory caused him pain. "We found his body beside the Thunder Path a few days later." "I'm sorry," Fireheart meowed. He wondered whether to tell him the truth about how Whitethroat had died, but decided it would be too harmful to reveal that Little Cloud's new leader had been partially responsible for his friend's death. It was clear that Whitethroat must have joined the rogues for a short time and paid with his life. Cinderpelt pressed her muzzle comfortingly against Little Cloud's flank. Settling down on the warm grass, she beckoned with her tail for the apprentice to sit beside her and began to ask him about his training. "Are things better now?" Fireheart carefully asked Running Nose. He would have liked to warn the Medicine Cat about Tigerstar, but there was so little he could say without revealing what had happened in ThunderClan. "It seems so," meowed Running Nose, sounding equally guarded. "The apprentices are getting the proper training for the first time in moons, and our bellies are always full." "That's good news," Fireheart mewed, forcing himself to add, "What about the rogues?" Running Nose frowned. "Not every cat was happy about their coming into our clan," he admitted. "I wasn't happy about them myself. But they haven't caused any trouble, and they're strong warriors. No cat can deny that." "Then maybe Tigerstar will be a great leader, just like the omen said," Fireheart mewed. The Medicine Cat met his gaze evenly. It seemed strange that ThunderClan got rid of a strong cat like that. Fireheart took a deep breath. Perhaps he should take this chance to tell Running Nose the truth about Tigerstar. "It's a long story," he began. "No," Fireheart, Running Nose interrupted. "I'm not asking you to betray your clan's secrets." He edged closer to Fireheart, then scraped the ground with his paws and crouched down beside him. "Whatever happened in ThunderClan, I'm certain of one thing." He mewed softly. "StarClan did send Tigerstar to us." "You mean the omen?" "Actually, there's something else." Running Nose glanced sideways at Fireheart. "Our last leader was never accepted by StarClan," he admitted. "When Nightstar became leader, StarClan did not grant him 9 lives." "What?" Fireheart stared at the Medicine Cat in disbelief. If Nightstar had only 1 life, it explained why the sickness had claimed him so quickly. Fireheart found his voice again. "Why didn't he get 9 lives?" "StarClan have not explained that to me," meowed Running Nose. "I wondered if it was because Broken Tail was still alive, and StarClan still recognized him as clan leader. By the time we learned that Broken Tail had died, Nightstar was too weak to make the journey to Moonstone to receive his 9 lives. And since Tigerstar came, I think maybe he was StarClan's choice of leader for us all along. Nightstar was not the right cat." "Yet the clan still accepted him as leader?" Fireheart asked. "The clan never knew he had not been given his 9 lives," Running Nose confessed. "Nightstar was a noble cat and loyal to his clan. We decided to keep StarClan's rejection a secret. What else could we do? There was no other cat fit to be leader. If we had told the truth, the clan would have panicked." There was a kind of relief in Running Nose's voice as he told the story. Fireheart guessed how relieved the Medicine Cat must have felt to be able to share the secret at last. "The clan cats thought the sickness was so bad it took all of Nightstar's lives at once," Running Nose continued. "They were scared, very scared. They had never been in greater need of a strong leader. So they accepted Tigerstar without question," Fireheart added, what the Medicine Cat had not said. But there was no need for Running Nose to voice his doubts about his new leader. "Has Tigerstar said anything about attacking ThunderClan?" Fireheart asked hesitantly. Running Nose let out a purr of amusement. "Do you really expect me to answer that? If he was planning anything, I'd be betraying my clan if I told you. As far as I know, you haven't anything to worry about. But whether you believe me or not is up to you." Fireheart discovered that he believed him. At least he believed that Running Nose knew nothing about any plans that Tigerstar might be making. Whether the Medicine Cat was right was another question all along. "Fireheart," the voice was Cinderpelt's. She had risen to her paws and was gazing across the hollow to the swell of moorland beyond. There was the WindClan territory that the Medicine Cats would have to cross to reach Highstones for the ceremony. "Are you and Running Nose going to sit there gossiping all day like a couple of elders?" Her paws worked impatiently in the grass. Little Cloud was standing beside her, his head raised and his eyes shining eagerly. "All right," Running Nose meowed, getting up and going to join them. "We've got all day, you know. Highstones isn't going anywhere." The four cats padded around the top of the hollow until they reached the edge of the windswept moor. Cinderpelt paused and touched noses with Fireheart. "I'll be fine from here," she meowed. "Thanks for coming this far. I'll be back tomorrow night." "Take care," Fireheart replied. He had stood here once before and said goodbye to Cinderpelt when she first went to face the mysteries of the Moonstone. A shiver ran through his fur as he thought of her plunging down through the underground tunnels to the glittering crystal for her silent communion with StarClan. He said nothing more, only gave the great she-cat's ear a swift lick in farewell, and stood watching as she limped across the moorland turf with the two ShadowClan cats. Chapter 6. The forest was dark. No moon shone down that night, and when Fireheart looked up he could see nothing but a faint pattern of branches against the sky. The trees looked taller than he remembered, hemming him in, brambles and ivy tangled around his paws. "Spotted Leaf," he mewed. "Spotted Leaf, where are you?" There was no answer to his cries, only the rush of water from somewhere ahead of him. He was afraid of stepping forward and finding nothing but black emptiness under his paws, as the raging torrent swept him down with it. In some part of his mind, Fireheart knew he was dreaming. He had lain down in the warrior's den, in the hope that he would be able to meet with Spotted Leaf and sleep. When Fireheart had first come to ThunderClan, Spotted Leaf had been the medicine cat, but she had been killed by one of Broken Tail's vicious followers. Now she visited Fireheart in his dreams, so that once again he could find in her gentle wisdom the answers too much that troubled him. But now, though he searched more and more desperately in the Black Forest, he could not find her. "Spotted Leaf," he cried again. This was not the first time in his recent dreams that she had been invisible to him. The last time he had only heard her voice, and he fought with the terrible fear that she was drawing away from him. "Spotted Leaf, don't leave me," he begged. A heavy weight landed on him from behind. Fireheart writhed on the forest floor, trying to free himself. Then the scent of another cat was in his nostrils, and he opened his eyes to find himself scuffling in his mossy bedding, with Dustbelt cuffing him around the shoulders. "What's the matter with you?" Dustbelt growled. "No cat can get a wink of sleep with you yowling like that." "Leave him alone." Sandstorm put her head up from her nest, blinking sleep from her eyes. "It was only a dream. It's not his fault." "You would say that," Dustbelt sneered. He turned his back on them and made his way out through the overhanging branches. Fireheart sat up and began grooming scraps of moss out of his coat. Through the charred branches overhead, he could see that the sun was already up. Whitestorm must have left already with the dawn patrol. There were no other warriors sleeping in the den. The darkness of his dream was fading, but he could not forget it. Why had the forest seemed so black and terrifying? Why had Spotted Leaf not come to him, not even as a scent or the sound of her voice? "Are you all right?" asked Sandstorm, anxiety showing in her green eyes. Fireheart shook himself. "I'm fine," he meowed. "Let's go and hunt." The day was bright, though the chill of leaf fall was in the air. Fireheart was relieved to see that grass and ferns were growing back thickly as the forest recovered. If only the fine weather would last, then the growth could continue and prey would return. He led the way up the ravine and through the forest toward tall pines. Since the fire, most cats had avoided the stretch of territory closest to Tree Cut Place, where the devastation was worse. The fire had started there, and whole stretches of the forest had been reduced to nothing but gray ash, dotted with tree stumps. Fireheart wondered if there was a chance of prey there yet, but as he and Sandstorm approached the edge of tall pines, he guessed that he was going to be disappointed. The pines, charred to tapering trunks, were still a jumble, with fallen trees caught up against one another. The few remaining branches stirred uneasily in the breeze. The ground was black, and no birds sang. "It's useless here," Sandstorm meowed. "Let's go in." She broke off as another cat appeared through the trees. A small tabby in white shape, stepping nervously over the debris of the fire. With a gasp of surprise, Fireheart recognized his sister Princess. She spotted him at the same moment and bounded toward him, calling, "Fireheart! Fireheart!" "Who's that?" Sandstorm spat. "She'll scare off all the prey between here and 4 trees." Before Fireheart could reply, his sister came up to him. She was purring as if she would never stop, pressing her face against his and covering him with licks. "Oh, Fireheart, you're alive," she mewed. "I was so frightened when I saw the fire. I thought you and Cloudpaw were dead." "Yes, well, I'm okay," Fireheart meowed awkwardly, giving Princess a quick lick in return and taking a step back, acutely conscious of Sandstorm's eyes on him. "And Cloudpaw's fine, too." Glancing at Sandstorm, he saw that a look of disgust had appeared on the ginger warrior's face, and her fur was fluffed out. "That's a kitty pet," she snarled. "She's got kitty pet scent all over her." The princess gave her a scared look and edged closer to Fireheart. Is this one of your friends, Fireheart?" she stammered. "Yes, this is Sandstorm. Sandstorm, this is my sister Princess, Cloudpaw's mother." Sandstorm took a step or two away from them, though she let her fur lie flat on her neck again. "Cloudpaw's mother," she repeated. "She still sees you both, then?" She shot a glance at Fireheart, clearly wondering how much he had told Princess about Cloudpaw's escapade with the 2 legs. "Cloudpaw is doing really well," Fireheart meowed. "Isn't he?" He met Sandstorm's gaze, silently willing her not to say anything tactless about the wayward princess. "He hunts well," Sandstorm admitted, "and he's got the makings of a fine fighter." Princess didn't realize how much Sandstorm was leaving unsaid. Her eyes glowed with pride, and she meowed, "I know he'll be a good warrior with Fireheart to mentor him." "But you haven't told me what you're doing out here," Fireheart mewed, eager to change the subject. "You're a long way from your 2-legged nest." "I was looking for you. I had to know what had happened to you and Cloudpaw," explained Princess. "I saw the fire from my garden, and then you didn't come to see me, and I thought—" "I'm sorry," Fireheart meowed. "I would have come, but we've been so busy since the fire. We have to rebuild the camp, and there's not much prey left in the forest. And I have more duties since I was made deputy." "You're a deputy now? Of the whole clan? Fireheart, that's marvelous!" Fireheart felt hot with embarrassment as Princess gazed at him. Sandstorm gave a dry little cough. "There's prey to be caught, Fireheart." "Yes, you're right," Fireheart mewed. "Princess, you're very brave to have come so far, but you'd better go home now. The forest can be dangerous if you're not used to it." "Yes, I know, but I—" The roar of a 2-legged monster interrupted her, and at the same moment Fireheart's nostrils were blasted with its harsh reek. The roaring grew louder, and a moment later the monster burst out of the trees, bouncing along the rutted track. Instinctively, Fireheart and Sandstorm crouched beneath a blackened tree trunk, waiting for the monster to pass. Princess merely sat watching it curiously. "Get down!" Sandstorm hissed at her. Princess looked puzzled, but she pressed herself obediently to the ground next to Fireheart. Instead of passing, the monster stopped. The roaring was abruptly cut off. Part of the monster unfolded, and 3 2-legs jumped out of its belly. Fireheart exchanged a glance with Sandstorm and flattened himself even further. Princess might feel at home with the 2-legs and their monster, but they were too close for his liking, and the undergrowth was still not thick enough to provide decent cover. All Fireheart's instincts were to run, but curiosity kept him pinned to the ground. The 2-legs wore matching dark blue pelts. They had no 2-leg kits with them, or dogs, unlike most of the 2-legs who came to the forest. They spread out among the burned trees, yowling and stamping so their paws threw off puffs of dust and ash. Sandstorm lowered her head and stifled a sneeze as one of them passed within a fox length of where the 3 cats were crouching. "What are they doing?" Fireheart murmured. "Frightening off all the prey," hissed Sandstorm, spitting out dust. "Honestly, Fireheart, who cares what 2-legs do? They're all mad." "I don't know." Fireheart couldn't help feeling that these 2-legs had a purpose, even if he didn't understand what it was. The way they pointed with their paws and yowled at each other seemed to suggest they were moving deliberately through the forest. Another 2-leg stamped past. He had picked up a branch and was using it to poke into hollows and under clumps of charred undergrowth. It almost looked as if he were hunting for prey, except the noise he was making, which would have scared away the deafest rabbit. "Do you know what it's all about?" Fireheart asked Princess. "I'm not sure," his sister replied. "I understand a bit of their 2-leg talk, but it's not words that my housefolk use. I think they're calling for somebody, but I don't know who." As Fireheart watched, the 2-legs threw the branch down. There was frustration in the movement. He yowled again, and the other two legs appeared from the trees. All three of them went back into the monster and climbed into its belly. The roar started up again, and the monster jerked into motion and vanished into the trees. Well, Sandstorm sat up, began licking fastidiously at her ash-stained fur. Thanks StarClan they've gone. Fireheart got to his paws, keeping his gaze fixed on the place in the trees where the monster had disappeared. The sound has died away, and the acrid smell was fading. I don't like it, he meowed. Oh, come on, Fireheart. Sandstorm patted to his side and gave him a nudge. Why are you bothering about two legs? They're weird, and that's all there is to it. No, I think they know what they're doing, even if it looks weird to us, Fireheart replied. They usually bring their kits or their dogs to the forest, but these two legs didn't. If Princess is right, they were looking for something, they didn't find it. I'd like to know what it was. He paused and then added, Besides, we don't normally see two legs in this part of the forest. They're too close to camp for my liking. Sandstorm's impatient look softened, and she pressed her muzzle reassuringly against his shoulder. You can tell the patrols to keep a lookout, she reminded him. Yes, Fireheart nodded thoughtfully. I'll do that. As he said goodbye to Princess, he struggled to push his growing anxiety out of his mind. Something was going on in the forest that he didn't understand, and he could not help fearing that it meant danger for his clan. Cutting across the corner of tall pines, Fireheart and Sandstorm made for the river in Sunning Rocks. There was no sign of prey anywhere amongst the scorched trees. The noise made by the two legs had seen to that. We'll follow the River Clan border toward Four Trees, Fireheart decided. There might be something there worth catching. But as they came within sight of Sunning Rocks, Fireheart stopped at the sound of a familiar voice calling his name. He looked up to see Greystripe poised on top of the nearest rock. The Grey Warrior scrambled down and bounded over him. Fireheart, I was hoping to catch you. A good thing a patrol didn't catch you, Sandstorm growled. You're very comfortable in our territory for a River Clan warrior. Come off it, Sandstorm, Greystripe meowed, giving her a good-natured push. This is me, Greystripe, remember? Only too well, retorted Sandstorm. She sat down, licked a paw, and started washing her face. What's the problem, Greystripe? Fireheart asked, worried that his old friend wouldn't have ventured into ThunderClan territory without good reason. It's not exactly a problem, replied the Grey Warrior. At least I hope it isn't. Just something I thought you ought to know. Spit it out then, meowed Sandstorm. Greystripe flicked his tail at her. Crooked Star had a visitor yesterday, he told Fireheart. He narrowed his amber eyes. It was Tiger Star. What? Fireheart stammered. What did he want? Greystripe shook his head. I don't know, but Crooked Star is very weak now. The whole clan knows he's on his last life. Tiger Star spent only a short time with him, but he had a long talk with Leopard Fur. The mention of the River Clan deputy increased Fireheart's fears. What did she and Tiger Star have to say to each other? Visions of an alliance between Shadow Clan and River Clan raced through his mind, with Thunder Clan trapped between the two of them. Then he tried to tell himself he was worrying unnecessarily. He had no reason to think that the two cats were planning anything. It's not unknown for leaders to visit each other, he pointed out. If Crooked Star is dying, Tiger Star might want to pay his last respects. Maybe, Greystripe snorted. But then why spend so much time with Leopard Fur? I tried to get close enough to listen, and I heard Tiger Star say something about coming again to our camp. Was that all he said? Fireheart asked. That's all I heard. Greystripe ducked his head in embarrassment. Leopard Fur saw me and told me to stay out of her fur. Perhaps Tiger Star's just getting to know her, Fireheart gasped. She'll be clan leader, after all, when Crooked Star dies. He turned as he heard another cat calling his name, and saw Mistyfoot pulling herself up out of the river. Oh, great Star Clan, exclaimed Sandstorm. Are we going to have all of River Clan over here? Fireheart, Mistyfoot panted, shaking off her fur. Sandstorm jumped back crossly as some of the spinning drops spattered against her paws. Fireheart, have you seen Greypool anywhere? Greypool, Fireheart echoed, picturing the short-tempered elder whom Mistyfoot believed to be her mother. Fireheart still felt gratitude to the River Clan Queen for telling him the truth about the two ThunderClan kits she had brought up as her own, but he hadn't seen her for a long time. What would Greypool be doing here? I don't know, Mistyfoot patted up the slope from the river, her face creased with anxiety. I can't find her in the camp. She's so weak and confused these days. I'm afraid she's wandered off and doesn't know what she's doing. She won't be here, Graystripe objected. She's not strong enough to swim the river. Then where has she gone? Mistyfoot's voice rose into a wail. I've looked in all the places I can think of near the camp, and she isn't there. Besides, the river's low just now, and it's not too hard to swim across. Fireheart thought rapidly. If Greypool had somehow crossed the river into ThunderClan territory, she would need to be tracked down as soon as possible. His clanmates were scared enough already of an invasion. He didn't like to imagine what would happen if an aggressive cat like Darkstripe found her first. Okay, he meowed. I'll follow the border up to Fortress to see if she's gone that way. Sandstorm, you go back to camp, tell the others what's happened, and warn them not to attack Greypool if they see her. Sandstorm rolled her eyes. All right, she mewed as she got to her paws. I'll hunt on the way back, though. It's time someone caught some fresh kill for the clan. With her tail high, she stalked off into the trees. Mistyfoot dipped her head gratefully toward Fireheart. Thank you, she meowed. I won't forget this, and Fireheart, if you need to cross onto RiverClan territory to bring Greypool home, you can tell any cat who sees you that I gave you permission. Fireheart nodded his thanks. He could just imagine what would happen if he were caught on the wrong side of the border by a RiverClan patrol with leopard fur at its head. Come on, Mistyfoot, Graystripe meowed encouragingly. I'll swim back with you. We'll check the camp again. Thanks, Graystripe. Mistyfoot pressed her nose briefly to the Grey Warrior's fur, and both RiverClan cats bounded down the bank toward the river. Graystripe glanced back swiftly to yowl goodbye, then launched himself into the water behind Mistyfoot. Fireheart watched them swimming strongly for the far bank before heading upstream towards Fortress. He followed the border, renewing the scent markings as he went until he was not far from Fortress. He found it hard to believe that the fragile elder could have made it this far, but then, looking down a rocky slope toward the river, he caught sight of a skinny gray shape limping slowly over the two-leg bridge that crossed the river on the route that RiverClan cats took to Fortress. Greypool. Fireheart opened his jaws to call out to her and closed them again without making a sound. The old cat had crossed the bridge and was tottering along the very edge of the river. He was afraid that if she heard a strange cat calling to her, she would slip and fall to her death. Instead, he began to make his way down the slope, creeping carefully under the cover of the rocks in a hunting crouch, so she would not see him and be startled. After a few moments, he saw to his relief that Greypool had turned away from the river and was trying to climb the steep slope toward Fortress. Her claws scrabbled feebly on the boulders, and Fireheart wondered where she thought she was going. Did she imagine it was a full moon, and she was on her way to the gathering? Fireheart straightened up and opened his mouth once more to call to her, but again he bit back her name and slipped rapidly into the shelter of the nearest rock. Another cat had appeared, bounding confidently from the direction of Fortress. There was no mistaking that huge, muscular body and dark tabby coat. It was Tigerstar. And that's where we will stop for tonight. I hope everyone enjoyed listening, and I hope you have a good evening and a good night. Till next time, my friends, take care.